A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I am Chamberlain Uso here in Abuja.
Good morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Welcome.
Well, it was a day I predicted on Tuesday, right? I couldn't wait for Friday. Well, Friday is upon us. You're welcome to the program. I'm Kaide Okikili here in Lagos.
I can also see there's Chamberlain is painting the town red in Abuja. And it's all red, even on the screen right there. Amaya Makinde, good morning. And welcome to the program.
Well, it's just that I'm also asking people to be cautious. That's what RED stands for. Be on the red alert concerning things playing out. But, you know, speaking about which, remember that different states are affected by flood. And so that's why there were lots of concerns when directive from CBN came through about the timeline, how they needed to go about changing currencies. Lots of reactions coming through about the current challenge that different parts of the country are facing. And then the timeline seems to just be putting so many people under pressure because we're wondering why the hurry if, you know, we're supposed to stick with that timeline. That what's wrong with allowing it for a little longer? That after all, you have other countries who are doing the similar thing, UK for instance, and they're not under this kind of pressure that the CBN is trying to put everyone in to ensure that that is done. But, yeah, I know they also blamed, flood for fuel, lots of queues, and now, eventually, because when we try to reconcile the comment of the Minister of Water Resources and who said it was, you know, it's a natural thing. But the governor of Bayelsa State sharply disagrees with that, saying this is not a question of rain, you know, causing this flood. That clearly said the dams, he raised the dams question. But the good thing about all of this is the imagery coming through from Bayelsa, where Nigeria Air Force is involved with airlifting relief materials that also coinciding with the approval for Bayelsa State government, approving a lot of money to ensure that things also get a lot better for those who are affected by that. It's actually very good to see. So that's, yeah, very welcoming, even though we always ask that the emergency management agencies step up their capacity to also perform this kind of functions, because if you have to wait for the Air Force, if they were engaged in several other things, not that this is not important, of course, that's why they're there, to safeguard the lives, the territorial integrity of the country, of which if you don't have people in the country, there won't be any country in the first place. So very good to see, but we just hope that you get a lot more of this in terms of the timing, if it could be a lot quicker. What are we doing about NEMA? What are we doing about all those agencies, rather than just hear them blame nature and things like that? We should see these kind of scenarios way much more. I think if this happens earlier and quicker than it is already happening, which is good to see, I can tell that you have a lot more smiles on people's faces.
Indeed, Chamberlain, and a lot more people will feel that they live in a country which cares for them, which cares about their welfare.
Yeah.
There are some disasters that are unprecedented. There are some that you cannot predict. I do not know if this flood falls into one of them, because this one we were told that it was going to come. Now some people were saying, oh, we didn't know that it was going to be this magnitude. But the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, it's not all disasters that you can predict. What we can predict, though, or what we can control, though, will be our reaction to whatever disaster we find ourselves in, be it man-made or be it something that, you know, we could not foresee coming. And I think that that capacity is what for me, has been lacking so far. We haven't shown that sense of urgency to say, if we find ourselves, I mean, I don't know that there is any, maybe there is, maybe I'm just not privy to what their discussions are. But when you look at how slow we are to react to circumstances, you know, around floods, around emergencies, as the case might be, you have to question, as you rightly raised, our capacity. And this is the instance where we now begin to see our military step in. And this is what you normally would see in many other countries. Some other countries do not wait for their military. They have another body entirely which handles internal security affairs and disaster, sometimes, oftentimes supported by the country's military. I think that while we're trying to develop the capacity of our emergency services to be able to do, there's nothing wrong if our military services do also step in to fill in that gap, because they already have some of the capacity, they have the equipment, and in many instances, they have the orderliness, that sense of urgency with which they carry, the precision with which they carry out their, will I say, their operations. Let me put it that way. So it was a little heartwarming. I'm wondering, why have we not seen this before now? This is what we ought to have been seeing. In the instance where we heard that there was, and in fairness, Chamberlain, I understand that in Cotton Carrefour, when things got to, got to a head, it was the military that was called in to come and, straighten things out in that particular area to ensure that there was some free flow of traffic.
Okay, that's heartwarming.
Yes, we didn't, I don't think that we saw a lot of that. We didn't quite see the visuals. But also, in this instance, I can say that it is heartwarming to see that our military have now, intervened in this matter, and relief materials are now being delivered to Bayelsa. I do not know if we have enough. That will be another kettle of fish. If this is going to go around, if, this is, I don't know how long this is going to be sustained for. But I would imagine, and I would advocate, that it should be for as long as the people continue to be in distress. Yeah. And until we're able to sort them out from their distress and floodwaters recede, there needs to be a lot of attention paid to the citizens of Nigeria to ensure that we're in a place of comfort by the time this is over.
And I think that is really the big question. When would this be over for millions of Nigerians? Well, last figure put it at just over 1 million. Who knows just how much we have now? Over 600 dead as a result of that. Who knows when this will be over? I just recently saw another alert that there might be more floods in the coming days for some states, that is. And I think, yes, urgency really important, but what will spur that urgency is perhaps the empathy that the appropriate agencies, individuals, organizations feel for those people. I know a lot of people have not experienced flooding. I have personally been displaced as a result of floods some years back, and I tell you this, it is not a pleasant experience at all. Imagine having to leave the comfort of your home, no matter how, humble your abode is or how, luxurious it is, whatever the case is, it is your abode, and you have to leave, not because you choose to, but because you don't have an option. I mean, you have to. You have to. You don't have an option. You can't sleep on the water, really. You can't sleep inside the water. That's death, really. So you have to move. And most times you move in such a hurry that you can't pack enough. Some people have to leave out of just a single bag. Some don't even have that luxury. They have to get plastic bags and just take what they can. I mean, that's not the time to even rush to get a toothbrush or toothpaste or soap. You just try to get the essentials. Most times, food and some warm clothing. So you rush out of the house. Most times in very dangerous situations, you have to wade through the water. It is not a pleasant experience at all. And I tell you for sure, it is not pleasant. And you have to move to a place, most times, a room, maybe a school, whatever camp it is that you have. At that point, you don't even have a choice. You're not choosing. You just want to get a place, just want to get safety at that point. So you are at the mercy of whoever is providing that shelter. I mean, you can't call the shots. You just walk to your fridge and pull something out of the fridge to munch on or get water. You are literally at the mercy of whoever is in charge. So when food comes, yes, all well and good. If food does not come, all well and good, as far as you're at least alive. So it is it's a very sad experience, I can tell you. I don't even want to remember that experience. So I think that a lot of people might be spurred to do better if they can just imagine the situation of millions of Nigerians who are affected by these floods. I tell you, it is a very sad experience. So the little we can, I've seen people here and there trying to do things, but clearly these people need more, just to try to make them feel a sense of comfort. I mean, they're not asking for too much. They're not asking for 5-star hotels. Just some food, warm clothing, you know, the essentials, medical supply, and all of that. I don't even want to think about the children who will be affected as a result of this,
You know,
honestly.
The word you started with, empathy, I don't even think how we understand how far-reaching that is. It's a good thing, as Malcolm said, that you know, the federal government is doing one thing or the other. NAF, excuse me, is airlifting materials and giving to these people all over the place. That's beside the information given out by the Minister of the Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, that they've crisscrossed about 199 local government areas in 25 states where flooding has affected, and of course giving some supplies here and there to people. Up to 3.2 million persons, we understand, were affected by flooding, according to the minister. But you see, what is scary for me in all of these, or scarier, is that word empathy that you mentioned, Coyote. As at the last count, depending on whose data you're looking at, we have between 50 and 70 million Nigerians living with mental health issues. This issue of flooding that you mentioned will most certainly spike the figures.
Exacerbate things. Really.
Will most certainly make the issues worse. Whether you're living in urban Nigeria or rural Nigeria, if you are directly or indirectly affected by this flooding, you are definitely going to feel a pinch. I mean, just imagine someone who's completed a house, just completed a house in the village. And I know that's something many of us do culturally. And this, on your screen, is what you see on social media, on your phone, the house you just completed. Right there, underwater, submerged. You thought you have achieved something, and there it is, underwater. I don't even know how far-reaching that has gone or will go in the life of that person. So, empathy. We can't legislate that, we can't cargo that, we can't airlift that, but we just need to empathize. Chamberlain Marper.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. And I tell you, if the military continues, dude, they don't have to actually crack their head a lot in terms of how to get citizens to volunteer information to them. This right here is a huge window and opportunity. So you can imagine if they continue this way, those imagery sticks in people's mindset, and they gladly will volunteer information to the security agencies, I tell you. That's social responsibility. Okay, let's just go on and take you through the dailies in a moment. All right, take a look at Daily Trust. That's what we start with today. Germany, Bulgaria, Ireland, Denmark join US, UK in Nigeria terror alert. And then you see some of the riders here. Real reasons US raised red flag. IGP orders security beef up as FCTA releases 60 surveillance vehicles. No need to panic, intelligence sources. Abuja Mall shuts operations. So there you go. That's a big lead story on the front page of Daily Trust here today with those riders. Basically, that is just what you see here. So the image you see right there is the entrance of the Jabi Lake Mall after the shutdown of operations yesterday over a security threat in Abuja. The paper so captions. So, there you go. That is Daily Trust this morning.
Well, you have to wonder, this break that has now continued, I mean, this break that, you know, schools have taken, whether it's going to continue next week, because part of it is because of the security alerts, from what we were made to understand.
Oh, wow.
A number of schools in Abuja have on 1 week midterm break. Will it still be midterm if it continues next week? We don't know.
Extended midterm.
Except, who knows? Children need to be safe, and their teachers as well.
Yeah.
Vanguard newspapers, look at this. UK insists on terror alert as major malls shut operation. That's what they also have on the front page as well. FCDA reclaims Buhari Law School land. FCDO advises British nationals against traveling to FCT 13 states. Alleged raid of Trademore Estate by DSS American soldier falls. That's according to the FCT police. So there was a statement making the rounds yesterday about a certain raid that happened in an estate called Trademore Estate by DSS and American soldiers. And people in the estate said they couldn't come out for a certain number of hours or so because an operation was going in there, or going on in there. And it was to, get some of the people. Well, I don't know if you say this is false. There are questions as to what do we, whether that is reassuring, because a lot of people felt reassured after hearing that there was that sort of raid.
Yeah.
So when you now say it is false, are you reassuring them or what? I don't know. But look at this. Abuja is safe, FCT minister declares. I expect Buhari to stop million-man marches. That's according to Professor Akinyemi. Insists Nigeria lacks capacity or capability to pick intelligent reports like US. After Nigeria, US issues alert on terror attack in South Africa. So that looks like we're not alone on this count. I don't know if that's comforting at all, but we'll have to leave it there for Vanguard newspapers because I see that it's not appearing on your screens. Mr. and Mrs., it's Friday. Come on. New redesigned Naira notes will soon replace the current ones. The money you hid under the carpet, jacket pockets, flower vases, etc., have been discovered, totaling 150,000. And if I ask you for money, you say you're broke. That's Mrs. now talking to Mr. Well, Mr. says, what about the dollar notes under the mattress? Well, dollar is not being redesigned, Mr. It is Naira. So if you don't give her the money, let her do something with it, it's going to be your loss. Let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
All right, I wonder why Mr. is keeping money under buckets. Really, Mr.?
It's the old school banking system.
We're not buying you today, Mr. No, not today. We'll take a look at Leadership Friday next. That's what we have for you next on the lineup. And leads with this one, another angle to that fresh terror alert by Canada, Australia. Now, you see, police say no imminent threats in Abuja racial residents. So that's on the flip side. 3 days after UK issues second warning, Jabi Shopping Mall shut. FCTA deploys 60 operational vehicles to security agencies. So to gives you a sense of the response and what is being done regarding that one. Clearly, a major issue will be taking a look at this morning. There's an infographic on terror alerts from Leadership Friday this morning. That's what you see there, just below that big story. And you see this one coming from the President. We will stabilize Nigeria's democracy with next year's election. So that's a statement regarding the election, which naturally is in the news now. But with this recent security issues, you wonder what that might do to preparations ahead of the elections. Take a look at this one. Wike's meeting with Umahi Ayade Ikpeazu in Rivers raises eyebrows. It's quite interesting to see that. I call them ex members of the PDP, Governor Umahi and Governor Ayade, now visiting a current member of the PDP, and you wonder, does that mean something? So perhaps that's the eyebrows
of a party, but they are friends.
They're friends. So it's not like
you can work in different companies.
So it's not like alumni. I wanted to say old students association. That's what I was going to say. So it's like a reunion, when you have old
just,
and new,
boys being boys. Students. I mean,
it's a political season, really. A couple of other stories. I'll leave you there for Leadership Friday.
And still talking about elections, Daily Independent has this one on its front page. And, well, it involves the EFCC. Daily Independent newspaper leads with this one. Illegitimate funds won't be used in 2023 elections, as ascribed to the EFCC. And it promises to partner INEC in curbing vote buying. That African proverb comes to mind. When the bird, when the hunter has learned to shoot without missing, the bird also learns to fly without perching. Always a missing target, a moving target.
Yeah, but it's going to be tricky for the bird, really.
Well, who's the bird in this case now?
That's the point.
Okay. Okay, we'll see two budget presentations there. One right above the picture. Okowa presents 561 billion naira 2023 budget to Assembly. And of course, the Lagos State Governor also making his budget presentation in that picture story. And the story we highlighted earlier, NAV to take delivery of 55, it's a different one. NAV to take delivery of 55 fighter helicopters in December. Investigates alleged airstrikes on civilians. Find the details of that continue on the inside pages. And right above the nameplate, decision to redesign Naira positive for the economy. That's ascribed to experts. Find more, continue on the inside pages. That's the Daily Independent this morning.
Take a look at The Guardian next. Terror threat, that is their theme. Arrest of suspects. UK's updated advisory, heightened fears in Abuja. Abuja Mall shuts down operations. DSS mom. FCTA reclaims law school land. Political parties should suspend mass rallies, says Akinyemi. Abuja is safe, FCT minister declares. Oh, okay. Finally, I haven't heard much of the FCT minister lately. So,
well, what, you've been hearing much of him before now?
No, just been
when you say
wondering.
lately, it will mean that you have been hearing a lot of him before now.
Lately, it's kind of extended lately because I don't want to say in a long while, but it is what it is. Yeah. It doesn't speak much, I guess. Stop grandstanding. Work with Pentagon to respond to security advisory. Dons tell FG. So that is their big story right there. But then equally this one, ASU FG face-off. Counting the toll as more cleanups, repairs needed in schools. And so they have a huge focus on that. It's their own big story. Actually, that's what they call it here. And that's what you see on the front page. And all of the security challenges, especially, it's a little more worrisome when you hear or read stories as to drug dealers delivering cannabis to terrorists, as the NDLEA is reported to have said this morning as well. So they just want to wish that, look, they should squeeze any drug dealer, anyone caught. You have to just issue. If this is what's going on, then clearly, you know that they've got a tough job coming for them. But kudos to the NDLEA yet again. That is The Guardian this morning.
Well, let's take a look at what This Nigeria has for you. They also are focusing largely on the terror scare. That's how they've chosen to capture it. Terror scare on the front page of This Nigeria. UK, excuse me, UK further warns nationals to avoid Abuja, ask them to travel to Nigeria's capital only if necessary. You know, my father is taking this warning to heart. And I have to remind him, hey, Daddy, I'm still here. You know, I live in this city. But it's okay. As non-essential staff of U.S. Embassy leave for home, federal government insists no cause for alarm. That story is on page 4 of the paper. How Chidinma allegedly transferred 5 million naira from slain Super TV boss Ataga's account by witness. Well, that story also came to you yesterday. It's a page 14 read. You know, the media is certainly very interested in this story, and they've been bringing also blow-by-blow account of how it's going in the courts. You also see the picture there. Jonathan in the flood of sympathy with Bayelsa people. So former President Goodluck Jonathan right there with his people in Bayelsa. Tampering with 2023 poll results will spark revolution, says Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria. That is also there on the front page. Police nab man with 101 PVCs in Sokoto. INEC to probe case. It's a page 4 read for you. Well, there's so much more somewhere inside and on the front page of the paper. I'll leave you to do it yourself. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
Yeah, so that ends a look at some of the dailies here today. We will be back in a moment and focus on our theme here today. Stay with us.
The focus for the Global Media and Information Literacy Week is nurturing trust, a media and information literacy imperative. As part of activities for this year, there's a ministerial panel. The ministers have within their sight an issue they believe is capable of affecting the country, if not nipped in the bud.
I must confess that the act and spread of disinformation in our polity gives me sleepless nights. Hence, any discussion on how to curb it gladdens my heart. Unlike misinformation, which could be an act of omission, disinformation is a deliberate act, and I repeat, deliberate act, to spread falsehood.
That is what makes the work much difficult today. Firstly, my humble opinion, we need societal reorientation. Our societal reorientation should focus more on self-regulation. Let us know what we need to do online, and let us know that we are responsible. Whatever you release that is disinformation or fake news, don't look at only the personality you are tarnishing. Look at its effect on your country, your continent, and also globally.
It's an opportunity for the Minister of Information to also weigh in on the recent security alert in the nation's capital, Abuja.
Some media outlets and social media personalities are usually caught spreading unverified information on their platforms just for clickbait and the attendant monetary gain. Talking of clickbait, this may be what informed the spread of this supposed security alert issued recently by some foreign embassies in Nigeria. One would imagine that if indeed this kind of security alert was issued, it was for the attention of citizens of the issuing countries in Nigeria only. Suddenly, this same alert finds its way into the media, both new and traditional, thus creating panic in the polity.
The key resolution of the panel is that the media must look at the wider implications of fake news on the society, the country, and the world.
All right, welcome back. Yeah, we are talking about security this morning, and those gentlemen join us. But here in Abuja, we've got retired Major General Saleh Maina. He is, among several things, which positions he occupied while in service. He was also a former Chief of Defense Research and Development for the Defense Headquarters. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you, Chamberlain. Thank you, Mabe.
Well, clearly, when perhaps we should even get your thinking about how this works, because when security alerts or advisories like this come through and they get to the public definitely will react in different ways. One of such would be caution, panic. But among security circles, how do they handle this kind of scenario?
Well, as rightly said, good morning, viewers. As rightly said, it definitely will cause panic anywhere in the world. Security is a major issue. It's a critical issue. And as we all know, security is the principal responsibility of government. Reaction of security forces definitely will be to be proactive, to be more alert. And if you've been going around Abuja, you'll see that the security activities have improved or have been increased both day and night. We must be proactive, and the government also needs to be proactive and collaborate with other countries. The security agencies themselves also need to collaborate with one another to share intelligence and for maximum cooperation so as to ensure that we have a very secure environment.
You know, I ask that because when this kind of information filters through the public and you hear certain government officials, either, political ones or in service, sometimes the public not exactly sure how they'll treat it. Are they responding? Are they being on the defensive? Or are they looking at them or analyzing those threats objectively? So it's a tricky one for members of the public. That's why I wonder how they respond to this kind of scenarios, because some of them say, look, we share information, we share intelligence with these agencies, these countries. So if they had issues or reports like this, why didn't they come to us? Why do you have to go to the public to, quote unquote, cause some sort of panic?
Okay, yeah, you have it's a semi-complex question in terms of what the security agencies should do, or as well as what why the other countries, or why the countries should go public instead of talking to the government, the host government, or security agencies. On the first one, it's a little bit difficult because the governments, the security agencies themselves, like I said, have to be proactive, and the government officials, you see, that's what they call national interest. And in diplomacy, you pursue, you project, you protect national interest. Ordinarily, you expect the countries to collaborate with the host countries and tell them, look, off record, not instead of going public. But going public itself is projection or protection of national interest.
But do they consider this, that's the security agencies here now in the country, do they consider this as going public? Because those countries usually warn their citizens. So if they put up the advisories for their citizens, is that tantamount to going public? Because what local media picked it and published it.
It is going public. That's why you say local media picked it.
So if it's within the controlled public, which is their own publics.
Let's go to the fundamentals. Let's go to the basics. Yeah. Every country has major security, has its peculiar security threats or security challenges, including the US. One will expect some collaboration, like I said, government to government, security agency to security agency. We have lots of collaboration. Okay? So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that the government itself, like I said, has their own interest that they project and protect. So they should have talked to the Nigerian government officials instead of going public, like you said. But you see, like I said, every country has security challenges. In this October alone, there have been more than 20 mass shootings in America, with about 40 deaths. Within this week that the United States issued this statement that we are discussing now, there have been at least 5 mass shootings in America, with about 13 deaths in Florida, California, North and South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. So why didn't they issue such warnings to their own people? So it's in pursuance, there must be some national interests.
Yeah, but General, how they respond to their own issue, it's their own, I think it should be their own headache. Yes. But for us here, the locals here, Nigerians will look at this in context of their own personal safety, and probably not comparing it with how maybe those foreign nationals responded to what is going on within their own country. So we will be looking into our own security agencies here. So their own job now will be to ensure they assuage frayed nerves or guarantee that, look, things will be good. But how do the public treat it if the government authorities are seen to be on the defensive?
No, the government, like I said, the government is not being seen on the defensive.
I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying if that's the way people perceive it.
The government just goes to explain that, look, this is the situation, and like I said, we've gone proactive. And like I said, anybody going around Abuja would have seen some improvement in the security alert and security responses. Because information, because you don't throw away
defending national interest now, too.
No. I'm a Nigerian, I live in this country. So I have to defend my country. But again, that doesn't mean why should spread falsehood. There's some increment in the security activities. And the security agencies must be commended for what they are doing so far. And that's why you and I are here. That's why we're in peace and relative peace and going about our activities while they're dying, given their lives and the heat and the cold so they must be commended. But at the same time, the alerts the government, the U.S. government has issued and other countries, you don't just throw it away as falsehood. No, you must process. You must process them. Like I said here when I was here some weeks ago, information is a raw material for intelligence. So that information that they give must be processed. But you don't just throw it away, you react immediately. And that's why I'm happy that the federal government of Nigeria and all security agencies have acted proactively.
By beefing up security, which is what a lot of people would, expect to see.
Yes. But the government should also issue statements to reassure the public, not just false statements, real in response to the actions they are taking. Because this requires collaboration, it requires cooperation, both locally within security agencies as well as internationally. You see?
And that's why a number of people were, sorry to interrupt you there, maybe, I don't know, it felt like they had poured cold water on their thoughts when, a certain statement was said to have gone viral about some alleged operation between the DSS and some military operatives somewhere around Trade Mall here in Abuja. But we are made to understand this morning that the police says that statement or that alleged operation is untrue. But for a number of people, that statement was a little reassuring that at least something was being done and maybe those who intended harm, had been caught or had been found. In this sort of scenario, I'm sure that sometimes when security agencies take certain reactions, do they weigh what the outcome or how that action will be perceived in the light of what, in light of what has been said or done?
Yes, they do. The society today is very, very complex. And because the threats have increased, and it's the interest that led to the threats. So, and there are more and more interested parties. So, and it makes such things a little bit difficult to predict the likely outcome of such actions. But actions must be taken, either proactive actions or actions in response to a particular threat or scenario.
I'm looking at how the DSS initially reacted to the statement when it went, viral, or the papers took it up. The fact that the US and the UK had issued security alert to their citizens. They said it was nothing new. In fact, at some point, we had our own DSS warn citizens to be vigilant at, there were possible attacks coming to certain areas of the country, even though they were working on trying to forestall it, but they wanted citizens to be vigilant. Why do we feel a little, why do we then feel on our guard when this warning comes from, will I say, embassies of other countries in our country to their own citizens? Isn't it something that we also do?
It's something that we do based on the information that we have. And it's better immediately one gets information, quickly alert the security agencies, alert the public to be vigilant, rather than being sorry when things have occurred. Because the collaboration, the cooperation of the public is very, very necessary. So that immediately something is seen or felt, it's reported.
Yeah, but so far so good. The reaction that we have seen has been more defensive. We felt quite offended by the statement.
Yes.
If it is something that we do ourselves, why are we taking such strong offense at the manner in which this has come?
Well, you see, earlier on I talked about interests. I don't want to go deep into it. Okay, look at the effects of the Ukraine war. On a lot of countries took certain views that other countries may not like. I'm just making an example, a likelihood. And if you look at other issues, international diplomacy is very difficult. A lot of things happen off record, which the public may not know. You see? So it's the national interests, in pursuance of national interest. Now, for this particular one, I didn't want to say it, but let me just say, 2015, we were told that Nigeria was going to disintegrate 2015. It did not. Said 2019, it did not. Now there's election in 2023. We're getting another major threat, or major information of major threats. So if you look at the trend, you'll understand probably why the reaction is the way it is. But like I said, you don't throw away any information you receive, because it could be true. Any information you receive, process. If it's not credible, you throw it away. If it's credible, you go through the process so that you can acquire whatever intelligence.
All right, we also have another perspective in Lagos as well. Just a moment, General. Our colleagues in Lagos have got a guest and some questions as well. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, I look the same way.
Adekoya, beg your pardon. Onyekachi Adekoya joins us this morning. He's a security consultant. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Well, I know you have some reactions to what the General has said so far, but let's begin with your own perception of that information put out by the US and the UK.
Okay, thank you for having me. I think there are different moving parts to this issue. The first is an issue of culture, security culture. The second part is the issue of security tradition, what I would term the taboo of security. When it comes to security, you don't talk about it in the open. So that's the perception of the taboo of it. And that has been perpetuated because of the system we have run, the system that is focused more on regime protection. So anything concerning security is shrouded in some form of secrecy. So you can feel security, you shouldn't see it, you shouldn't say anything about security because, for example, the security votes is all shrouded in a form of secrecy. So we don't talk about issues like this generally. If you look at the US that issued the advice, and that's not to say that what they have issued is correct. And I do encourage the media houses to invite the US consular to come on air to share with us what exactly it is that they felt that they saw. And you wouldn't find anybody really, just playing along. Like the General said, it feels like though there's some love lost between the APC government and some persons in the US government. because I think the APC flag bearer did say, and we can discount it for being nothing, that if borrowing were a crime, then maybe everyone in the US should be in jail. 1 or 2 weeks later, we get the alert. In 2014, we saw some statements being made, as it were, that seemed to suggest that the US government was favoring the APC candidate over the PDP candidate, although the US would say that they are non-aligned in whatever happens in local politics. So we're in the political season.
So essentially you've presented for and against all of these theories.
So you see, when you listen to the general speaking, he didn't say some things. And you could see him almost smirking at some point. And I also have that same smirk because there's a lot of moving parts to this. So let me deal with the issues first of all. Why this whole reaction? In risk management, we ask the question, the so what question. You have an advice put out, so what? So what's the next thing to do? The Israeli government puts out alerts like this periodically. And so what? The people in Israel they're in a state of heightened security awareness. Security comes to them as second nature because they've been drilled into it. Security education in Nigeria is very poor. I don't know when last you went through a security awareness workshop for your own media organization because you're always in the field. You're going to be covering political activities. There's increased threat this period. Cyclically, we see that on the eve of major elections, crime will spike. It will begin to spike. Yeah, no, that's fine. So I'm just asking a rhetorical question. You can defend your organization. No problem.
No, I'm giving you the reality.
No problem. I just asked a question. So you see that from November till March, crime will spike. So look at the context in which we are going to have elections against the backdrop of insecurity in the Northwest, the Northeast, North Central, Southeast, South-South, threats in the Southwest, ISWAP making incursions into the Southwest. This is the context in which we'll have elections.
Always, or just this one?
No, I'm even saying that we have come into this. You will now have added to that layer of insecurity, election-related violence. Well, so insecurity will only get worse. I'm just coming, maybe some analysis to why the U.S. put out the advisory. Now, what do foreign missions do on the eve of elections like this? They are not sure if transition will be smooth, if there will be issues of post-election violence. You can rather deal with a smaller footprint of citizens than a larger footprint of citizens. So what they begin to do is to thin out on non-essential staff. That's the issue of their own operation. So if the U.S. is angling towards that pre-election preparedness posture that they will take, and their pre-evac plans, then let them say that that's what they are doing. We can understand that's what happens every
But there
year.
was specific, sorry, they were specific about Abuja. And it's not only the US government, the UK government. I even saw a report that says the Australian government is putting out the same. I know that Africa is not happy about that. Nigeria has made a statement. South African president has also made a statement. So if all these things that you have said, you know, what usually happens around general election cycles and all of that, is anything for us to go by? Didn't we see this coming?
So you see, we don't have enough time to talk about some of these issues. There are issues of national interest. We dimension some of these issues around national interest, national defense, national security. The geopolitics of the moment also affects some of the things you're saying, but we can't get into that now in the public. So let's even stay with what we know. You have talked about this period. This period is a period of high risk, even for locals, because of snap rallies, snap events, protests, clashes. You will see an increase, an uptick in crime. We already are constrained by the number of police assets that we have. The personnel, the police should be working 8 hours. They are working 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. They don't have any rest. So they are going to be strained because you have an influx, an increase in activity this period. So it's a challenging period. It's sensible for most times during this period, FDI will slow down because people want to wait to ensure that there's a smooth transition. So that's going on. Now, I talked about the taboo of it. You don't talk about some of these things. So we don't have the culture to talk about it. If you go to the U.S. government, Department of Homeland Security site, you will see the language. The language, the U.S. is in a constant state of heightened security threats of terrorism. In terms of terrorism index, The U.S. is not safer than Nigeria in terms of terrorism index because they are prime candidates for it. An American in Yola is at a greater risk compared to a Norwegian in Yola, though they may be two expats, or a Chinese citizen in Yola or in Borno State. So the U.S. seems to be like a magnet for some interests.
Because we saw that in July when Zawahiri was killed, the Al-Qaeda guy. There was that alert issued. In fact, if you essentially go to the website, you see a series of alerts during political rallies, during major events. You essentially see all of that. But the DSS also issues from time to time.
Correct.
I'm just reading one. I think this was issued in April. Essentially, almost the same thing, really, talking about, recreation spots and all of that. But I'd like you to, one of the questions he asked was about why Abuja? Lagos is still operating. Why Abuja? The alert in Abuja has been raised to level 4. Generally, Nigeria is level 3, but Abuja is level 4. Other parts, Lagos, it is not level 4. In other parts of the country, the southwest and all of that. So why Abuja to begin with? Why is it peculiar? If it's elections, then it should naturally be everywhere in the country.
Simple. Abuja is landlocked. Abuja is landlocked. And as a matter of fact, the U.S. has issued the alert for Abuja and Lagos.
They're still operational in Lagos. It's not like Abuja that they're
So Abuja is landlocked.
Skeletally.
In their evac plan, why do you think the U.S. wants to build the largest consulate, 5.12 hectares of land, prime location on Eco Atlantic, facing the Gulf of Guinea? Because if anything happens, they are facing the Atlantic.
Well, they said this to improve relations.
No,
with Nigeria.
don't worry.
So that is essentially.
No. And the U.S. claims that it's because trade is increasing with Nigeria and relationship. No, trade is on the decline. We're trading more with China than with U.S. U.S. is now energy independent. It's now becoming a net exporter of energy. So the interest in Nigeria is not as it used to be. We're not really trading that much with the U.S. So the question is why the 5-point-something hectare facility facing the Atlantic Ocean in Lagos? So there are some moving parts to some of these things, which, we can't talk about on air.
Another moving part, another side to the story. You've given your perspective on why Abuja. The other one is this. The IGP says no reason to fear. In fact, essentially told people to go about their duties, saying that they're on top of the situation. I am paraphrasing, but do not fear, go about your duties. Those were his words. And then we have this terror alert. The UK's FCDO also put out a statement. We've heard that other governments have put out a statement. So if you were to weigh both, because some believe that this is meant to spread panic, and some have likened, General was likening it to the mass shootings in the US and the death rate. I don't know if it's the same terrorism and mass shooting. Some might say, well, it's essentially the same. You're terrorizing people and killing people. So which should people hold on to? Because I think ultimately a lot of people want to know how to react to this.
Good. I think it then brings us to our security culture. We have a God forbid it will not happen to me, not my portion kind of culture. An advisory has been put out. So what? Let's answer the so what. So pay attention. Pay attention to Abuja, for example. The Abuja Municipal Council area, statistically, is the area with the most crime. And that's where you have the most parks and everything. The border communities like Buhari, Abaji, some of those other crime in those areas are reducing. Again, we are in the raining season, not a fighting season. Kudos to the GOC 1DIV and the CO 7 Brigade, Guards Brigade. There's a lot of clearance operations going on in and around the areas around the FCT, Kaduna, Nasarawa, Niger. They are really working. But I'm not sure what the FCT minister is doing, if at all. This is one of the very few cases where we have an FCT minister that is almost not known. And the job being done is almost not felt. So Abuja is almost on autopilot. So there is some cause for concern.
Just because he's not speaking, you think?
Not because he's not just speaking. I live in Abuja, I work in Abuja, I'm in Lagos, I'm in Maiduguri. And I joke sometimes that I sleep better in Maiduguri than in Abuja. No jokes. As a matter of fact, the general overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church had an open-air crusade in Maiduguri just some days ago. That's how it is now. First, posture-wise, we are significantly postured towards the northeast and some parts of the south. Now that creates a bit of a challenge in the northwest, north central. So that's what you're seeing is also that The military is also re-strategizing and reposturing. We don't have an infinite amount of resources. So there are some concerns. Should you be concerned as a Nigerian? Yes. Okay. So what should organizations do? Do some security awareness workshops, train the people on what to expect, see somebody say something, minimize night movement. There are things to do. But while giving, sorry, let me just land, I beg you, and while giving the government the opportunity to address the issues are there.
But there's something I consider very significant that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Adekoya, which is that of security education to the people.
Yes.
Let me ask General about that, because the concern that comes to mind is, I mean, as you heard Mr. Adekoya say, if we are saying, okay, there are some things about security that we cannot talk about in public, at the same time, we need to educate people about security, see something, say something, and all of that. Exactly how should who be approaching that so that our people themselves are armed with the necessary information to take the first steps to protecting themselves and their loved ones?
It's off. I can't hear
Oh dear. Okay, well.
Okay, the ways to go about it is
Go ahead, General, we can hear you.
Okay, the way to go about it is that it's at all strata. The government itself has its organs to educate or enlighten or send awareness to the public. There's the Ministry of Education, of course, all the media organs, private and government-owned. There is a National Orientation Agency, down to the equivalent at state level and local government level. And of course, there are various levels of leaders who should pass the information to the public. And the public should take such information very, very seriously. It's a fact that security affects everybody. So it's for our own collective good that everybody reacts positively and actively to ensure that we have some collaboration, some cooperation to ensure that the security agencies act most appropriately to ensure security in our environment.
All right, well, we'll go to break, but we'll return and take a look at some more scenarios and possibly how to move forward. Join us again. Welcome back to Sunrise. Well, General, what would you advise the citizens and the security agencies to do now? Because it's you've been there. So the way you conduct yourself in public, on the streets, on the road will be completely different. You have loads of information, experience about how these things happen. So you don't expect regular citizens to behave in that way because you've been there. So their reaction, understandably, will definitely be different. And if we can even rely on, because they also are members of the public, they see images, they see what's going on at the airports, they see how diplomatic circles are behaving. So you can't control how they behave. If what they see, they react to what they see. What would your advice be moving forward now?
What I advise is maximum vigilance by all. Maximum vigilance. There's one advert, they say, if you see something, say something. So maximum vigilance. Nothing should be taken for granted. Anything suspicious, anything odd, anything unusual should be reported. And like we said earlier, the security agencies must be extra vigilant, and they should be proactive. And as we also said, we've already seen that improved in Abuja. And there must be cooperation and collaboration between the security agencies. But the government must give them maximum support so that we can achieve results. Because there are a lot of allegations earlier on of inadequacy in terms of manpower, in terms of quality manpower, in terms of equipment and so on. Yeah. In terms of motivation, all these things government should handle seriously and comprehensively.
One of the things I know you also asked for, one of your recommendations earlier, was that the government, that's the Nigerian government, needs to keep us abreast of what it is that they're doing.
Yes.
Who should be giving us that information, especially because this terror alert is very specific about the FCT and I think maybe Lagos as well.
Yes.
Who should be giving us the information which we need, and how should that information be getting to Nigerians?
Yeah, I mentioned them earlier. I said the heads of certain critical organs, like the Ministry of Information or Minister of Information. I mentioned National Orientation Agency, and I mentioned the equivalents at lower strata of government, like the state government, like the local governments. The information and the awareness must be timely, must be comprehensive, and must be convincing to the public so that they can react appropriately.
Convincing.
Not just yes, it's very important.
I'm highlighting this even as you also emphasize the fact that we've seen a beef up of security patrols around here in the FCT, in Abuja and parts of the FCT as well. Some people will imagine that should be reassuring enough for citizens, that if there is a terror alert and they're beginning to see more patrols, that should be enough for citizens. Will you say that in addition to whatever it is that you're visibly doing, there needs to be that briefing also? Is that what you're also recommending?
Yes, if there are developments, there should be briefings. You see, you don't make regular briefings if there's nothing to say. It could be counterproductive in the sense that it could create panic. Once you call heads of a security agency or ministry, invites journalists regularly for security briefings, and there are no developments, it could cause panic.
Abuja has been in a heightened state of alert for a while now. I mean, since Kuje happened, I mean, even before Kuje happened, when Kuje happened, for some it was no surprise. For many others, it just showed just how vulnerable the FCT was, and the fact that such an attack could happen. And even as we speak, we don't know that all of the prisoners, all of the people who were behind bars have been brought back. I think a few of them were returned, but when you look at the percentage of those who were returned and vis-a-vis the percentage of those who escaped, you know that there's still a lot of work to be done, unless some work is being done behind the scenes and the media is no longer aware, or maybe they're not informing the media in that regard. But since that time, there has been some trepidation in the FCT and some worry. At what point would you say that it will be safe for citizens of the FCT to be able to go about their business as normal?
Well, security is not, I mentioned earlier that there's insecurity everywhere in the world. And you just heard the minister talking about the US, just like I also said earlier. There's nowhere that is completely safe. There are security challenges all over the world, and that's why you have the police all over the world, you have the militaries all over the world. So let's not, and then if you look at insurgency, let me quickly rush to mention about insurgency. From two perspectives. One is the intention of the insurgent, and the second one is how his modus operandi. The insurgent wants to talk about government. One insurgent wants to cause panic. He wants to cause maximum destruction. He wants to cause fear. He wants you to feel that the government is unable to protect you. So, and then the second aspect is how does he do it? Attacks, killings, murder, assassinations, and so on and so forth. So while doing that, he has what is called initiative. He decides more or less where to act, when to act, and how to act. While you, the security agencies, or you, the government, keep being proactive,
or reactive,
reacting to his attacks and so on. I'm not saying it's an excuse, the Kuje prison attack. Many of such have happened all over the world, including even September 11.
Well, what I'm looking at, the question I asked is about at what point would you say citizens can, because it is not possible for us to continue to live in a heightened state of security.
There's no point where you have 100% security in any environment.
Yes.
That's no point.
It is true, but what I'm saying is it is also not possible for us to continue, because what is going to happen? We already know that our economy is fragile as we speak. What you will find people doing is that they would avoid all non-essential places. Social activities are going to decline. Places that, you know, also serve as areas for entertainment, etc., these businesses will suffer as a result of alerts like this.
Yes.
So it is not possible that, you know, we can sustain this level of alerts for the longest of times. At what point would you say that, you know, it will be safe? Or, you know, at what point can the Nigerian government say that they've done sufficient work to reassure citizens that it is okay for us to, you know, consider, even with caution, going to some of these other places that we might be avoiding for now as a result of, you know, the alert that has now gone viral?
There's no particular point other than the briefings by government and government agencies. We just heard the minister saying that, and I pray it is true, that the statements or policies, statements or decisions taken by some of these countries led by the US is exaggerated or false. But like I said, we don't just throw away any information you receive. But there's no particular point that you can say, okay, everybody is safe 100%. But we must we must collaborate, we must cooperate, we must share information, we must be careful, we must be cautious, we must report any suspicious activity or event we see.
Well, General, if we say, I mean, if the authorities say US, UK, well, they're part of the Global Five, they could be on the same page on issues like this, and so they raise questions. How do we then explain that of Bulgaria, Denmark, Ireland, who have also on the same page now with those countries saying, well, yes, indeed, this alert is real?
I'm not saying it's not real. I'm saying we should take any information very, very seriously, process it, be proactive. The citizens should be proactive, the security agents should be proactive, as well as the government. While the information we receive from these countries or from whatever source is being processed to confirm its credibility, extract whatever we can extract and take the necessary action.
All right, we'll certainly will look forward to that and see how the authorities handle this, because how they handle a lot of this, as you said, will definitely shape to a large extent how the citizenry themselves also react. So all eyes will be on them now. Well, I have to thank you very much for coming on today. Retired Major General Saleh Maina is a former Chief of Defense Research and Development with the Defense Headquarters, among several positions he held. Always a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead, guys.
Let's try to wind this down, Mr. Adekoya, as well. Two issues, just for me, really. So lots of inferences have been made to the U.S. state of security in the U.S. and all. And I was just going through Nigeria's embassy in the U.S., the website. I didn't see advisory. So I don't know, are people saying essentially that Nigeria should also be issuing advisories to Nigerians in the U.S. because of the mass shootings? I mean, just this past week, there have been some of them, Texas, Ohio, and the rest. I don't know if that's a sense, maybe a tit-for-tat thing that has been, or that is being put out. Is that what you would say as well?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's a culture thing. Security education is very poor in Nigeria. And yes, we should have our own national travel advisory or international travel advisory, as it were. So it means that for every diplomatic outpost, there should also be advisory put out periodically to Nigerian citizens to keep them safe. Understand that when you put out advisory, you're taking a precautionary approach, or we say out of an abundance of caution. We throw caution to the wind a lot of times in Nigeria, which is why we are here today. Someone once said, a retired DSS official said that Nigeria operated security on the basis of luck, or the assumption that nothing will happen. But we must accept today that terrorism has come into our lexicon now in Nigeria, and you must prepare for it and keep the citizen in a drilled state Now, the U.S. has a National Terrorism Advisory Board that puts out videos, trainings, a lot of resources to the citizenry on what to do in the case of an active shooter, what to do in the event of a terrorist attack. If you say we're to put out that in Nigeria, who will be responsible for that?
Are you calling for another agency?
Not an agency. There are agencies already. We have the NIA. We have agencies.
So essentially, sorry,
yes.
There's something you clearly said the other time about our security education culture being very poor.
Very poor.
So how do we begin to readdress that?
Good question. You have to change the curriculum of the current setup that we have. So curriculum is very poor. And I think that the police, within our own context, should take the lead on this and have on their website. Remember the former IGP, the guy who worked, is he Ibrahim or so? When he first came to office, the first 2 weeks, he was putting out crime statistics in Nigeria, giving us data, but the data was making some politicians look bad or feel bad. So they stopped it. Police stopped putting out crime statistics. And we thought, oh, that was fantastic, that you can know where the crime is trending, you can know what is trending, and then research people can come up to find out the reason why those crime is trending in those places, and then there can be some policy around there to address the issue. So we must change our tabooist approach to security and follow a proactive, advisory-based approach to security. In any case, our 2019, I think, National Security Strategy revised hammers a lot on human security. And if you're going to do human security, security education is very, 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 very important.
That's quite interesting, really. And perhaps just to also get this angle of the story. So we've seen the South African president also saying that, well, this situation is unfortunate, that he expected that the government of the US will have at least maybe reached out to the South African government to let them know that this is what's going on, this is what we're doing. And we've seen collaborations time and again. I mean, Nigeria essentially buys platforms and all of that from the US. We spend lots of money. The Super Tucano is one very big example. We've seen partnerships as well. You call the 2020 incident, the American citizen who was abducted in Niger, and then there was partnership with the Nigerian government, Nigerian government, and he was rescued and all of that. So essentially, there's been that call for collaboration. I know that the general talked about it. I don't know what kind of collaboration you think we can have from here, because it looks like it's now a bit political. The governments are saying, are you trying to make us look bad, or are you trying to stampede our people, cause panic? So can there still be some sort of collaboration in this light?
There can be. So it's a matter of interest. Now, in the geopolitics of what's happening today, I think that we have to look at the other picture. There may be some other moving parts. Ghana just decided to go gold standard back, to tie its currency back to gold. Whether Nigeria wants to go that way, we don't know. If Nigeria wants to join BRICS, that could affect relationship with the U.S. So there are a lot of moving parts.
Or if BRICS allows Nigeria.
If BRICS allows. Now, you saw this Saudi prince in SA. Next thing is that the South African president saying that the Saudis want to join BRICS. So you can't just take some of the things you see at surface level. There's a lot of politicking, international diplomacy going on. If you say we are collaborating with the U.S., no, I don't think we are collaborating very well with the U.S. or the U.S. is collaborating very well with us. The Super Tucano you talked about, what they sold us was not what we particularly need. Some of the capabilities that we need were stripped out of it. So, that's left for the government to say, what the issues are. We've tried to get loitering munitions for a long time, and we understand that the U.S. keeps blocking purchase of certain critical equipment because of the Leahy Law. Ukraine, in its own right, is not a particularly more human rights friendly country than Nigeria, but Ukraine has gotten almost $17 billion worth of American, very advanced systems. So it's a matter of interest, really, not a matter of human rights law, if you were to ask me the way I see it. So, again, Nigeria has put itself in this position. We don't have R&D for defense. We are not, we have
DICON, we have the rest.
DICON is in a state, so collaboration is not there. And even the guys in the DMI, NIA would tell you that the U.S. would only share what it feels favors its own national interest best. It's not like they're sharing information. What's the grounds of the issue here? we have asked, we have spoken internally. Was there any communication between the U.S. and our own, the platforms and the channel, their liaisons?
Would you say there was?
The guy said there was not. So the U.S. blindsided the government, basically, and put out the alert. In my place in Ogere, it said that if you say Ajekilano or Mokularo, you say, what's the connection? So people have
to translate that.
So let me, you say the witch cried in the night, the child dies in the morning, you say there's no connection. So if the government is spooked, it's because they say, hey, is there something we are not aware of? Because we're in an information age now. There's information warfare going out there. There's also social engineering by misinformation, disinformation. You also have even complaints of bots on Twitter, on Facebook. We saw the Arab Spring and what fuel did. So you have every reason for the government to be spooked. Remember, Twitter just came out of a long ban.
We saw what happened with the U.S. elections as
and
well.
The U.S. election and the claims of Russian interference. So you can't just leave things to chance. And I mean, it's a lesson for everyone in international diplomacy. Before you put out something out there, speak to the channels, don't blindside them. If you are strategic partners, as it were, you collaborate and you address the issues.
You know, some of these things, it sounds very, very, very interesting because, as you said, it would seem like sometimes it's just rocket science. But then when you, I remember which prime minister was coming to Nigeria and made some very flamboyant statement about the country, and then you came and shook the hands of that same president. I'm wondering how that plays out. It's not just in my place. However, just one more interesting conversation around something that we're all aware of. This Naira, new notes thing.
Yes.
There's a connection to security as far as the CBN is concerned. The CBN governor, for instance, said, and I quote, the CBN is convinced that the incidents of terrorism and kidnapping will be minimized as access to the large volume of money outside the banking system used as source of funds for ransom payments will begin to dry up. First of all, what do you make of that? Do you see it denting the image of money kidnappers and ransom payers?
That's so is it that when they print the new, redesign the currency, kidnappers will say, okay, no, we prefer the old currency, pay us in the old currency, or they won't collect ransom in the new currency?
No, it's in terms of mopping up the already available funds.
What does it do exactly? Currency in circulation is about 3 trillion. Money supply is about 48 trillion. You want to reprint 3 trillion to achieve what exactly? I mean, people may start collecting ransom in dollars. So, I mean, it doesn't change. So, let's leave out the politics of, I'm an economist by training, but we're not speaking macroeconomics here. I don't want to go into, I can't see the rationale for what the CBN has decided to do. Maybe there are some other things that the CBN governor is looking at that we cannot see, so I would not want to speak on that currently. But I don't see how it impacts on security. I don't see how. Because the issue of ransom collection is just straight on negotiation. The people who are paying this ransom would cash the money from their banks and go and pay the ransom. And then the people who collect the ransom would, in that same currency they are paid, procure from the markets. There's an entire value chain. You saw the busing of people who supply drugs and everything. They can convert to dollars if they want to procure weapons, or they exchange minerals in the areas they control for the resources they want. So I think that, you see, the problem we're seeing is that why are we in a state of confusion like this? It's because that people don't know what to do. If we were aware of what to do, the polity will not be very heated as it is. Because
when you say know what to do, who doesn't know?
Nigerians. Security education is poor. That's what I'm coming to again.
Don't forget,
yes.
Mr. And I think it's important to. I hope this is not one of the taboos, not one of the areas we shouldn't get into. But there are terrorists, organizations that have collected ransom in the now phasing out notes. And naturally, with this window, they will need to perhaps convert it to the new note so that it can have value anyway. So don't you think that is also a good way to now monitor? So, okay, how did you get these funds? Because I imagine that questions will be asked. So don't you think in that light, that would at least do something? Maybe not as much for you, but at least something.
Have you taken a study into the value chain in terrorism? The people who spot for kidnap are some roadside persons. Maybe they get paid 10, 20,000, for example, for spotting. The ones who kidnap get paid for kidnapping. The ones who warehouse the people get paid for warehousing. The one who supply the drugs get paid for supplying the drugs. The ones who has to do law enforcement liaison, if there's any such a thing like that, has to get paid. So when you say 100 million, for example, it doesn't stay in one place, in one hand, hold up on the ground somewhere. This is money moving everywhere. And then you have the big shots that have to call for the negotiations and everything. Some of these people don't even hold value in Naira. They hold value in dollars. So what are you converting to Naira? What are you bringing out? We are talking about money outside circulation, yeah? Okay? Currency in circulation, 3 trillion. Currency, money supply, 40 trillion. So there are other issues of macroeconomics that this matter would not touch at all. However, I keep saying it, that we are having these issues we're having today because we are not structured correctly for security. Our emphasis to security is completely wrong. Our national orientation on security is warped, completely warped. Every sensible security is local. The police should be the lead agency for security. Then the police, if your DPO could have been having in your community monthly security meetings, which they do, but people don't come out. So those education, if you have state police, better force, all the major political candidates for 2023 are all talking about restructuring of even the policing structure.
Okay.
So there are a number of issues that puts us in this precarious situation, puts us in a bind, and even the government is not as very fierce and forceful in their statement like South Africa, because we still want to procure some things from our own national defense sector is in the toilets. So, I mean,
well,
you shouldn't be bothered.
A lot of them will beg to differ on that, especially that expression, it's in the toilet.
Okay, I forgive my French.
A lot of them are doing a job of work, laying their lives on the line.
No, I don't mean their effort. I mean the equipment, our defense infrastructure.
Even the equipment. The president was recently talking about some huge, procurement and all of that.
I'm not talking about procurement.
If we keep going this way, we'll probably leave here
I'm talking about our own productive capacity. It's in the toilet, not the people at all.
Because are you referring to DICON and the rest? Because
DICON is serious.
Again, you see a lot of them working on drones and all of that. Perhaps another expression, maybe not in the toilet.
We produce 60 ABT aircrafts in 1986, 1985. Nigeria was projected to become a major player in the aviation sector in Africa. What happened to that productive capacity? We could have gone all drones. Look at Iran supplying drones to Russia with all the sanctions. The best scientists for the U.S. government in missile system, in drone systems, a lot of the bright minds they have, they are Nigerians.
We have to run.
Well, Mr. Adekoya, they're not in the toilets. They're not where we want them to be.
Okay, toilet reverse, please.
Thank you very much. Onyekachi Adekoya is a security consultant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Truly, truly appreciate your time being here this morning. We're back after now. Please stay with us. Well, let's talk a little bit about that, and especially considering the reported kidnappings, banditry, and killings in the state. Many have questioned the role of local governments in mitigating and securing the people, especially those threats, and eventually the ones that really do happen to people. So let's find a way around these conversations with Mukhtar Lawal Badoni, whom you have seen earlier, in that welcoming slide. He is chairman, Kaduna North Local Government Area. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Well, one is wondering, generally the natural question anyone would be asking now is, there are many who have said that local governments are supposed to be the first line of security. Consequently, the reason we have the level of insecurity we have all over the place is because the local government systems collapsed. Do you agree with them? We can't hear you. Could you kindly unmute?
That are closest to the people at the grassroots level. So, of course, security is a primary concern of every government, and local governments accordingly should be responsible for primary provision of security at the very basic level. So I absolutely agree with the assertion. Local governments have a big role to play when it comes to stabilization of security of lives and properties of the people. So yes, that is absolutely spot.
But then the level of security has exacerbated over the years, especially in recent time in the country. Would you then say that where do we lay this blame, if I can put it there? Well, not blame, well, the word blame used loosely there. Is that to the state governments, to the local governments, or to the federal government? Because every community is supposed to be governed by a local government.
Well, the designers of the system, of course, placed a unique responsibility on the federal government, which is to recruit security personnel, namely the police, immigration, civil defense corps, and the rest of them. And the state government, by the designers of the Fourth Republic democratic system that we are currently practicing under the Constitution of 1999, is supposed to provide complementary services. Likewise, the local government. And there are unique roles that we have to play. We, the local governments, are supposed to support the conventional security architecture that we have, and also to complement them with manpower. Because what you currently have are systemic limitations as it concerns the deployment of manpower. I'll make an example for Kaduna State. When the current state government came on board in 2015, we had 14,000 security personnel of the police force in the state. But now, currently, I think the number stands at 11,000. And comparing that to the population size of Kaduna State, which is 9 million, it means that we require 90,000 police or security personnel across the state as per United Nations standard. So currently, we are grossly on demand when it comes to security forces. But what we have is the state government and the local government coming up with measures to complement the services of the conventional security forces. And that has worked so far in terms of intelligence gathering and also community-based policing as a whole. So definitely the state and local governments have to understand their roles within the system and to play it accordingly in order to get a much more efficient security workforce.
Well, Mr. Baloni, if memory serves me right, the way local government security apparatus went back in time, if memory serves me right, had far little to do with policemen in the context of official police than it did with other apparatus, just as you said, intelligence gathering, community relations, and all of that. Give us an example of your own experience as chairman of a local government and how you approach the security, apparatus that you had, security challenges that you have to deal with.
Okay, I'll just give you a most recent example, right? We've had presidential candidates in the days past that were reported to be in Kaduna, of course, for various political activities. But actually, they were both, or shall I say, 3 of them that came to Kaduna were all in Kaduna North local governments on a particular day at a particular time. And there was reports of a breakdown in law and order in these places that they visited. Well, for local governments, first and foremost, the design that has been created by the state government for us to so to say, use to work as a working model is supposed to be that the local governments are supposed to have monthly security committee meetings, which is supposed to comprise of all heads of security agencies domiciled in the local government. And furthermore, to look at cases and threats of breakdowns of law and order, to look at it with a view to proactively tackle them before they happen. And it is due to our proactive measures that we took in securing these locations that there were breakdown of law and order, especially during the PDP presidential rally that happened in the Ranchers Beach Township Stadium that happens to be in Kaduna North local government area. We took very many proactive measures. I recall getting a report in one incident that almost 35 people were arrested proactively, and they were on their way of causing more mayhem at the venue of that particular event. So as you can see, even though we are not saddled with the exclusive preserve of protecting lives and property, but local governments can uniquely look at the situation and proactively take steps to prevent the current situation from further deteriorating. So that's what we did in Kaduna North local government in the recent past. And furthermore, just yesterday, we launched the Security Trust Fund initiative, where the local government intends to partner with a certain private sector and public sector elements to put funding together, like the Rapid Response Squad structure that you have in Lagos State. But this is supposed to be implemented at the local government level, where we put funds together in order to complement and to provide various security resources for the security agencies to work even more effectively. So that has been done, and we have gotten a lot of positive responses so far, because Kaduna North local government is blessed to have quite a number of organizations that are economically buoyant that can contribute to this fund. And together with us, we believe that we are giving birth to something unique in the sense that it has never been done at the local government level. And we hope that we will be able to achieve the objectives of the Trust Fund initiative to stem the tide of insecurity in Kaduna North in particular and Kaduna State in general.
If you could shed more light on that trust fund, and I think this is a very, very interesting conversation, really. I mean, we have 774 local government areas in Nigeria. So if we could get it right across the 774, imagine what that will do then to the security of a country at large, because everybody stays in the local government anyway. For that trust fund, what specifically would the funds be used for? So, I mean, will it be to procure equipment for security operatives? Would it be in terms of gathering information, ensuring that you have people around different areas that can gather information and get the appropriate, supports to be able to push that information around? What specifically is that fund looking to tackle? So maybe we can begin to generate more ideas from there.
Well, thank you very much. That's basically the hope and the assertion that made us to establish the Security Trust Fund. If you can get it scaled up for the other 773 local governments in the country, perhaps the issue of insecurity will be a thing of the past. Now, looking at our unique situation in Kaduna North, we have 7 police divisions present in Kaduna North. Furthermore, we have the DSS, we have the Civil Defense Corps, and other security agencies that are all in Kaduna North. But the unique situation in Kaduna North is we have 650,000 residents in a very densely populated area that is the size of 70 square meters. Furthermore, we have 3 million people that commute into and out of Kaduna North on a daily basis. So you can imagine the level and the unique responsibility vested on the security agencies that operate within Kaduna North local government area. That, for us, is making us to look inwards to bring up unique ideas, like you said, in civil and human relations with the security agencies and how they interact with various members of the public, knowing how to profile certain crimes so that we don't waste our resources dealing with only minor crimes when we have major crimes that are currently happening within the local government area and the metropolis at large. So furthermore, we have created, or we intend to create with the funding from the Security Trust Fund, a call center, a sort of a unique communication architecture where members of the public are now able to call into the police divisional offices that we have, instead of how you see people having numbers of the divisional police officers that they can call in terms of emergencies of a security nature. Rather, we want to move that away to institutionalize communication between the security agencies and members of the public by making them to call the police divisions like we used to have them in the past. I know that in the past there used to be a unique toll-free number that people used to call into, but currently we don't have those. But we are currently working with one of our telecommunication companies that is based in Kaduna North to provide that service.
So essentially
and to further synergize the relationship between members of the public and also the security agencies.
Right. So essentially you're saying that this is
information in real time.
Right. So you're saying that this is centered around information gathering and dissemination. And the question naturally will be just how well then are you maybe exploring the areas of enforcement, some sort of bite? Because yes, it's important to gather those information and ensure that the appropriate agencies handle them. But, in terms of, the immediate action, do you have any bite? Because looking at the conversation we were having earlier, the U.S. advisory, for example, Kaduna is on level 4. That's the highest alert, just like Abuja now. Just recently, we've seen Kaduna, Zamfara, and all of that. So that's the general sense, at least from that angle, that there are very, very high incidents of insecurity, kidnapping, terrorism, and the rest. So are you exploring some sort of bites, some enforcement? I know there have been talks about local security networks and all of that. Is that also involved in this plan?
Absolutely. A task force is currently being set up to engage members of the public who have complaints about strange faces and illegal activities that currently go on within their neighborhoods across the local government area. Furthermore, I believe that we have a huge role to play when it comes to stemming the tide of insecurity in the state at large. Even though Kaduna North local government happens to be at the heart of the metropolis, where we have a very low rate of kidnappings, but we happen to be a sort of value chain that is plugged into the kidnapping syndicates, because people that pay ransoms and collect ransoms usually do them at the heart of town. And with information gathering that we are able to create, it makes sure that we are able to trace these people and to pinpoint them to security agencies in such a way that they would be apprehended in due time. Furthermore, we are planning to also fund the legal process, because there is the enforcement issue which has to deal with arrest, interrogation, taking statements and whatnot. And then there is the ever important prosecutorial process, which is a function of the judiciary and the judicial system. And we believe that that part of the security architecture is severely starved of funding. You can imagine where a defendant or an alleged criminal is having enough funding to employ a very high-level legal representative, and then the state happens to just be overwhelmed by the number of cases, which is why we have a rather high, unusual number of inmates that are awaiting trial in the correctional service at the moment. So we intend to also fund the legal process of prosecuting these alleged criminals when they are apprehended, as all part of the wider enforcement architecture that we are planning to implement.
People will say that these are fine plans, but do you have a timeline for any of the plans, especially with regards to the legal aspect of prosecuting suspected criminals?
Yes, our objective is, in the first instance, to cut the time frame for prosecuting the rather point-blank cases that we have by half. Currently, our data shows that on average, the criminal cases that we have before our courts take 18 months to prosecute to a conclusive level. So what we intend to do is, in the first 6 months, to bring down the time frame of these cases to not be for a span of more than 3 months, because most of these cases have overwhelming evidences, and it's just a case of processes that lead to a stagnation in the court. So we intend to deploy a team that is able to cut down these timelines by 3 months in the first 6 months. And currently we have a crime register that allows us to see what crimes are peaking at a particular area within the local government area. And it will interest you to know that we have been able to pinpoint a rather disturbing trend of sexual abuse in minors that has allegedly been taking place in pockets around the local government area. And we have set up a task force in conjunction with the State Ministry of Justice and the State Ministry of Human Services to be able to deploy a team that will prosecute these alleged criminals that are engaging in this nefarious activity. And with that, we are able to give it a wider publicity with a view to preventing further cases occurring across our communities.
Are you able to compare notes with your fellow local government chairmen, for instance, within Kaduna and also on a larger scale within Algon, for instance?
Oh, yes. Within Kaduna, we have a peer review mechanism where we sit down with other colleagues to look at measures that are being implemented in our sister local governments. I, for one, in Kaduna North Local Government Council, have been able to present all these new ideas to my colleagues, and every other colleague of mine across the 22 other local government councils in the state is at various stages of implementing that. Furthermore, the state government is also working assiduously to ensure that they bring up measures and initiatives for us at the local government to follow. A case in point will be the farmer herder crisis that is currently dwindling and about to be a thing of the past in Kaduna State, because the state government mandated all local government councils to set up what we call a farmer herder committee that looks at all these crises at the infant stages with a view to solving them arbitrarily, as opposed to how we used to have them, that the conflict will have been full-blown before it comes to the knowledge of the state government, and it becomes a lot harder for the state government to solve. So everything done at the local government level is a lot easier to handle, in the sense that there is that local knowledge that comes with it. And also we're able to arbitrate at the first instance between these warring parties. So definitely there are a lot of initiatives that are being shared across local government councils in Kaduna State. As it concerns Algon at the national level, of course, we in Kaduna State are sending a document articulating ideas and initiatives that we have undertook and that we are currently undertaking with a view to having them implemented across local governments in different states of the country.
Now, in spite of all of this that you highlighted, you still have lots of people who still think that local governments need to do a lot more to ensure that some of these threats that are happening in different parts of the country are, if not reduced to the barest minimum, but at least, impacted hugely. So what would you consider as one of the main impediments to ensuring that local governments actually play their role in ensuring that security of lives and property are protected?
Well, I have a personal and little professional thesis about that. I believe first and foremost is about the political will, which will stem from the quality of leaders that are being elected at the local government level. And I believe, with all sense of responsibility, Kaduna State has been able to do a good job in ensuring that the process used in selecting candidates that will stand for election at the local government level is quite a rigorous one, to ensure that it's only people of high intellect and passion about their local government areas that are able to clinch the seats of local government chairpersons. Furthermore, I believe also that the major impediment operationally for these initiatives to take shape and to stem the tide of insecurity in our local governments has to do with information. Information stemming from public confidence, which will not be gotten if the public are not satisfied with the level of service delivery that is being delivered at the local government level. So definitely, it has first and foremost a lot to do with the political will by the leadership at the local government level, because these things are not activities that require financial resources of a kind. And I know that the tempting explanation to it is always that local government needs financial autonomy. But with the little that we are able to get, and with little or no money, local governments and chairpersons of local governments can be able to do a lot, because the people are people that like to subsist and be conformist with the leadership of the day. So really, if one is saddled with the responsibility of leading a local government, I believe the first and foremost step that needs to be taken is to restore confidence amongst the people in the administration of that local government. And then information will start flowing, which will lead to timely intervention that would forestall breakdown of law and order in that local government area.
Could you shed a little more light when you talk about little or no money? Does that have to do with the operations of the joint accounts of local government and state? Don't you get security votes as well?
Kaduna State, in particular, has been practicing financial autonomy for the local governments as far back as 2018, where the local government reform law was passed by the Kaduna State House of Assembly. So in Kaduna State, we don't have the problem of financial autonomy, and the joint account that is currently operated across the state is done so as to further streamline activities of local government to conform with the overall thinking of the state government. And Kaduna State and Kaduna North Local Government Council in particular is a local government council and a state that really operates on the principle of fiscal federalism. So whatever a local government is able to get from the FAC allocation from Abuja is given directly to it. Furthermore, we are allowed and encouraged to actually grow our internally generated revenue so that we can answer to the yearnings of our people. But what I'm trying to say on the little or no funding requirement is really when a leader at the local government level, which is a grassroots level, has the political will, all I need to do, for example, is I can go out there, talk to my traditional rulers, I talk to the people in the local government, and I can douse a situation without spending a penny or without spending a lot of time trying to understand the situation, because I'm a local Kaduna North boy. I was born here, I was raised here. I understand the local lingo and the local context required to communicate with my people. So that's my assertion of saying that there is little or no financial backing required for you to stem the tide of insecurity.
All right, interesting theory there. We need to go though, but just quickly, if you can, do you get security votes as well?
Oh yes, we have a security allocation, definitely.
For local governments?
Yes, local governments have a security budgetary allocation, which is prepared by the local government council and passed by the Kaduna State House of Assembly. So Kaduna State has a unique budgeting process where the local governments are...
How much did you receive this time?
No, like I said, it's just in our budget. It's not an amount that is stable on a local government by local government basis. We look at our unique situation and then allocate whatever resources we are able to get from our IGR and our FAC allocation towards security. So it is not a one-size-fits-all allocation.
Okay, then. Mukhtar Baloni, Chairman, Kaduna North Local Government Area. Thank you for your time today and all the best.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of your comments coming through today. Do we have some of them? Go ahead then.
Yeah, I see this one from Victor Owo, and he says this is a lesson for us. I imagine he's referring to this security alert. He says if you take care of your house, no visitor will come and ask you to sweep dirt from your floor. Disagreeing can never be the answer. Clean your house. Simple.
Well, Festus, I've got yours. You say terrorists attack. Oh, I'll go again. He says terrorist attack can happen anywhere in the world, and many of them are targeted at US and UK citizens and interests. Therefore, US and UK have done the right thing to warn their citizens. Nigerians should not panic because our military are capable of securing our cities.
We'll take a look at this one from, there you go.
Yes, that's mine. Man of good conscience says, we agree that insecurity is a global challenge, no doubt. What we are saying is that what is the government doing to equip Nigerians to prepare for the worst? Where's the advisory from our own security installations? Information is power and saves.
Well, John Ugola has this one on the security question, saying the security alert is usually issued based on analysis of threats and early warning signals. A security alert in itself is not a conclusive prediction of the happening of an attack or security incident. And then he goes on to say the only challenge is that if security alert is not properly handled, it could create fear and confusion. All of that you find there.
Well, there you go. So that is the show today and for the week as well. We just thank you all for your time, perspectives, interests. We appreciate all of them and more. So we will be back again next week. Until then, I am Chamberlain, so have a very good day.
Well, thank you for watching, and please stay vigilant this weekend and throughout, and stay safe out there. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Our hearts and prayers with the family, friends, and those who have been impacted by the death of civil rights activists Ario Daria Toye. He's been with us on the show time and again, speaking about issues on elections and all. And it's a very sad one on his passing. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Share our condolences. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.